Strangely enough, it seems that Fast and Furious will never truly end. Despite the upcoming film being the last in the numbered series, several spin-offs have already been confirmed and are in development, and at least one of them will be released before we see the finale of Toretto's story. Vin Diesel himself revealed this when he was literally trying to convince the studio to announce the release date for the 11th Fast and Furious. It seems Universal is in no hurry to say goodbye to one of the most profitable franchises of modern times and is trying to get the most out of it through spin-offs. As you can see, we have plenty to discuss, which is what we will do in the next few minutes. Over the past years, Fast and Furious has turned into a box office giant and become globally recognizable, which complicates the task of creating a worthy finale. And the studio, it seems, is not yet ready to say goodbye to its most popular franchise. Rumors about various spin-offs have been circulating for a long time, and some of them might even work after the main series concludes. Recently, Vin Diesel shared on his social media that it looks like we will see another film before the very last one. The fact is that 1.5 years ago, when Dwayne Johnson's return to the franchise was announced, his solo project was supposed to be released between the 10th and 11th installments, not a sequel to Hobbs and Shaw, but a separate story that would tell about the confrontation between Hobbs and Dante. Jason Momoa's character is avenging his father's death, but in the last film, he essentially only fights Toretto and his family. Although Hobbs was the one who fired the shot, so it is logical that his storyline should be concluded. And considering the complicated relationship between Diesel and Dwayne Johnson, a solo project looked quite appropriate. Besides, Ryan Reynolds, who had a cameo role in Hobbs and Shaw, could also have appeared there. With such a cast, a solo film could very well have made good box office numbers and served as a link to the 11th Fast and Furious. However, these plans were not destined to come true for various reasons. Hobbs is indeed returning to the franchise, but this will only happen in the final part of the overall film. Therefore, Vin Diesel was talking about a different project in his message. It was about a collaboration with Michelle Rodriguez, which he compared to the short film Los Bandoleros. The fact is that before the release of the 4th Fast and Furious, which essentially rebooted the series and made it what it is today, a kind of prequel was released. It was a 20-minute film directed by Vin Diesel himself to tell how the heroes met and why they started robbing fuel tankers. Now the actor is hinting that a similar project in which he would also direct could be released before the final part. At least, he confirmed that he has already received such an offer. Although he did not share plot details, he noted that he would like to shoot it in some exotic location. He even mentioned desert locations in the Middle East, which were used for filming Furious 7. Diesel's message naturally raises several questions. The short film Los Bandoleros helped explain what Dominic was doing between the events of the 1st and 4th films. Los Bandoleros was included in the digital edition of the 4th part, but many people missed it. The second question is what this prequel will be about. The story of Dom and his circle after the tense ending of the 10th part will be resolved in the next film, and it makes no sense to film something about the characters in between. This means there is only one character about whom a prequel can be made story-wise. We are, of course, talking about Luke Hobbs and his unmade solo film. After all, we essentially do not know what he was doing before his unexpected appearance in the post-credits scene. And allocating a budget for this controversial idea for the studio makes sense only to fill the gap between the 10th and 11th parts and somehow motivate Dwayne Johnson, since his spin-off did not happen. But will he agree to participate in it if Vin Diesel becomes the director? Honestly, it is hard to believe, but it is the most acceptable option. And while the studio is thinking about continuing franchise, Vin Diesel is asking to reveal the exact release date of the final film. The 11th part does not yet have a specific date on the calendar, although it is expected to be released in 2026. This, by the way, also became known thanks to Diesel's social media, who wants the finale to coincide with the 25th anniversary of the franchise. But it seems these plans are not destined to come true. Filming for the final movie itself has not yet begun, and in the meantime, almost half a year has passed, making a release in 26 increasingly unlikely. This also supports the idea of a short project that would link the last two films together and please fans before the finale is released. Another question is how it will be released, since short films do not make it to theaters. although this is not a problem at all because there are social media, YouTube, and creating a news hook will not be difficult. The same multi-part internet project based on Mortal Kombat, which many have likely seen, was released only online and without any advertising. However, it gained such attention and popularity that the 21 reboot could be envious. Therefore, releasing a Fast and Furious short film does not seem like a hopeless idea. By the way, there is another option in which a mini project could be filmed. As you know, Fast and Furious 11 is supposed to conclude the iconic film franchise and have a happy ending, which has already become a characteristic feature of the series. Whatever happened to the heroes, whether it was jumping across chasms, flying into space, or even death, the writers managed to bring all family members back every time. Even though characters usually return from the dead, one particular hero apparently will not be able to do so. At the end of the 10th part, the plane with Roman, Tage, Han, and Ramsey was shot down. But since their deaths were clearly not shown, they will all remain alive. For Han, this is generally the second time he has supposedly died. The same technique was already used with Letty, and Giselle was brought back from the dead for the finale. However, one character cannot be brought back into the film. We are talking about Dominic's brother, Jacob. In the 10th part, he sacrifices himself, thus disrupting Dante's plans. And this heroic act allows him to save his son. Jacob's death turned out to be one of the most emotional scenes of the entire film, and his return in the final picture would spoil it. If Jacob indeed remains dead, he will be one of the few main Fast and Furious characters who dies and does not return. Another such hero is Mr. Nobody, who also did not return to the series after his death, at least for now. We are talking about the last part of the franchise, which means unexpected things can be anticipated. With Jacob, this option seems unlikely due to John Cena's involvement in other projects, including a contract with a wrestling association. But Fast and Furious is Fast and Furious, and since the heroes do not die, releasing a short film with Jacob to show that he survived and secretly helped the family is quite realistic. Such a format is much easier to fit into Cena's schedule, which would not require a lot of his time.
But as they say, time will tell. Interestingly, besides Hobbs and Shaw, Fast and Furious already has a secret prequel that many have not heard of. We are talking about the film Better Luck Tomorrow, which was released in 2002 and featured a familiar character. We are talking about Han, played by Sung Kang. It is believed that his first appearance in the main film series was in Tokyo Drift. However, this was not his official debut in the franchise. The fact is that before working together on Fast and Furious, director Justin Lin and Sung Kang worked together on the film Better Luck Tomorrow. The plot revolved around budding criminals, and the action took place in Asia. Sung Kang played the character Han 4 years before Tokyo Drift. After signing a contract for Fast and Furious, Justin Lin realized that he wanted to see Han as part of the franchise and made this idea a reality. Since then, the director has often commented that Better Luck Tomorrow is essentially a prequel to Han's first appearance in the franchise. But besides this, Fast and Furious has another spin-off that you might not even have known existed, and moreover, it is dedicated to Dominic Toretto's cousin named Tony. True, the character never appeared or was mentioned in the movies and was only the main character of an animated Netflix series called Spy Racers. The project ran from 2019 to 2021 and told how Tony strives to be like his famous cousin. Vin Diesel, by the way, also appeared in the series and voiced the animated Dominic. In this light, it would be logical to include Tony in the film to help the family, but the studio is currently remaining silent about the plot. All this goes to show that Fast and Furious already has extensive experience in expanding the franchise through prequels and spin-offs. Although it is difficult to call them objectively successful, the reason was the absence of striking characters. Tokyo Drift shifted focus, centering on an unknown main character, and was memorable only for Han's appearance and the soundtrack. Spy Racers was an animated project, which in itself limited the target audience, and only Hobbs and Shaw proved that if you put charismatic heroes at the center of the story, you can get a worthy continuation of the series. The studio is now considering all possible options to expand the franchise and continue it even after the main storyline concludes. As you can see, it is still too early to say goodbye to Fast and Furious despite the upcoming finale.
The most impressive racing saga about family is not planning to slow down, but is only changing direction. After the main series concludes, a whole series of stories about both old and new heroes awaits us. And here, by the way, one could come up with a dozen titles like Fast and Furious Will Never Die, Fast and Furious The Very Last Race, and Fast and Furious The Quick and the Dead. And frankly, we do not mind, because the franchise has been with us for over 2 decades. And it is hard to imagine that once every 3 years, laws of physics will not be broken in cars in theaters. No matter how much the series is criticized, it has long since departed from its roots and has become a symbol of a typical modern blockbuster for entertainment. And Diesel handles this task perfectly, and we do not expect anything more from him. Be sure to share your title suggestions for new Fast and Furious spin-offs in the comments. And who else should be brought into the franchise to become part of the family? Well, that is all for today, friends. See you in new videos very soon.